ESPN.
One of the things about that, and thank you for the congratulations on the contract extension, because I tell people all the time, to last 16 seconds in our business is an achievement. To be able to do it 16 years on a national level, like I've been fortunate and blessed to do at ESPN Radio, has been unbelievably tremendous for me. It's been a godsend. It also still is a head-shaking experience, and I've been able to work at ESPN Radio for 16 years. So getting that contract extension, it validates what I've been trying to make myself do in terms of being the best person I can be and putting the best person out there. So to have that kind of validation was really worthwhile for me to get that from a company that I really love working for. And I still get a kick out of working at ESPN Radio, even with 16 years later. And I tell people all the time, sometimes it's not about where you land, it's the journey that led you there. And when you have a chance to go a lot of places and see a lot of faces that I've been able to do, to get to that point when you didn't expect that to happen, I know exactly how blessed I am to still be at ESPN Radio after all these years.
All right, folks. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Uski and Herbie. And we got Freddie Coleman with us, who does a lot of good stuff for ESPN Radio. And yeah, he's with us for 20 minutes to start the show here, talking anything but sports. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who like to talk about good things going on, and he's on. He's going to be on TV tonight, on the radio from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. on ESPN Radio with your good sideline reporter, Iron Fitzsimmon. So talk about your partner in crime. You know, how's it like working with him?
It's really cool working with Ian, because even though it's been 5 years with us, it seems like we've been working forever, and we've had that kind of chemistry from the jump, to be honest with you, Chris and Ewan, because we were always friends before that, where he would guest on my show and we would always talk over things. So it just seemed to be a natural progression for us to come together and become a team. And we've been able to not just challenge each other, but some people believe that great conversation involves great yelling and you have to debate everything. That's not a great conversation. That doesn't mean that we're going to be on the same side of plenty of things. That does not happen with us. But at the same time, we don't look to be in a disagreeable state of mind. The ability of having disagreements are going to be a factor in what makes it a great radio show. As far as we're concerned, you're going to get 100% of us. And there are plenty of things that Ian will say, I'll go, I don't know about that one. And there are plenty of things I'll say, Ian will say, I don't know about that one as well. But we know that it's always going to come from a place of honesty. It's always going to come from a place of credibility. And that's one of the best things, I believe, why our partnership works. We never have to worry if someone's being dishonest or somebody's going to take our credibility level and bring it down to a low level. That's something I never have to worry about with him. And he doesn't have to worry about that with me either.
Oh, that's awesome, Freddie. Hey, during your days playing for the Mountaineers, Mansfield University, man. Hey, what'd you run in the 40? I'm just curious about your career there, but I'm more curious. The millennials probably won't know this, Freddie, but who did you aspire to be catching balls for the Mountaineers?
It was funny you mentioned that, because I knew I had heard about that league, the PSAC, the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, on the periphery because Slippery Rock and IUP, but I didn't even know Mansfield University existed until I got the brochure in the mail. And then once I went to that and realized they were in that kind of conference, one of the best Division II conferences in the country, I knew exactly what was going to be expected of me. And so many guys have come out of that league. For example, Andre Reed, when he played at Kutztown, he was a senior when I was a sophomore. And when he went into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and we had him on our show, and I said, how much do you carry the PSAC with you? He said, I'm taking the whole conference with me into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So it's really cool that you run into so many different people that have been players in that league or even coaches in that league. For example, John Calipari, Kentucky. He's a graduate of Clarion University. John Chaney became a Hall of Fame basketball coach at Temple. He used to coach at Chaney University, which is outside of Philadelphia. So our little league has had some really important people that have been able to do some great things on a grander stage. We have a World Series champion from my school, and Tom Brookins, who graduated from Mansfield and was part of the Detroit Tigers team back in 1984 that won the World Series, and all those guys. So anytime people ask me about the PSAC and ask me about Mansfield, I said, we may be small, we may not have that national attention, but we've been able to do some good things on a great stage. So no matter what I've been able to do professionally and personally, I've always carried Mansfield University in my heart and soul, and also the PSAC with me in my heart and soul as well.
Yeah, that's true. Freddie, talk about this week. Talk about tonight, Game 2 of the wild card between the Yankees and Indians. The Yankees and Indians seem like they play each other almost every year in the postseason, last couple of years. But this is a different type of wild card. This is the best of 3. instead of just one game and everybody goes to the divisional round. Do you think the Yankees have that firepower to just sweep this game and go on to? I think they go to San Diego next week if they make it into the divisional round, right?
Yeah, they are going to go to San Diego because when they kept scoring those runs last night against Shane Bieber, I was saying they better save some runs for tonight because they put up a 12 spot and a 7 spot on him where they had 15 hits in that game. And no one questions the Yankees offense. People are worried about in terms of not so much their starting pitching. They don't have to worry about the relief pitching because they know that's locked solid. But when you're able to go out there and put up a 12 spot against the Indians on the road, and Garrett Cole goes out there and he was dealing for the New York Yankees, all of a sudden, whatever pressure was on that team coming into this series against the Cleveland Indians got greatly reduced because I always believe that confidence is very dangerous when you have it and very dangerous when you don't have it. If the Yankees have that kind of confidence, there's not a pitching staff that'll be able to hold them outside of Tampa Bay. But if they're able to do that and reduce that stress on their pitching, that be the most difficult out of any team in the American League, no matter who's doing what or who's playing. Playoffs that got started yesterday.
Yeah, Freddie, I wanted to ask you, in this age of social injustice, and of course, when we were kind of growing up, we didn't really have these kind of outlets, but I always hear these things, oh, he's the face of the league, he's the face of this. How bright is the future in the NFL? When I think about Patrick Mahomes, and we got an opportunity to sit down with Lamar Jackson the year that he won the Heisman, how bright is the future for this league, knowing that the two most brightest stars in the league seem to be the most humblest and grounded?
Well, if you're the National Football League, because Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, you were going to wonder about them as being quarterbacks and how they were going to progress or how they were going to play. That he saw two guys winning MVP awards before the age of Mahomes winning it in 2000 and Lamar Jackson winning it last year. And just seeing Patrick Mahomes, I don't think he's even scratched how great he's going to be, which has to be a very scary proposition for anybody playing defense or coaching defense in the National Football League. And I thought it was the best comment I heard about him this week when Calais Campbell of Baltimore Ravens said that's why they gave that guy $500 million, exactly why they gave him that kind of money, because he's been completely tremendous. So if you're the National Football League, I compare this era of quarterbacks, whether they're older quarterbacks or younger quarterbacks, as the golden age of quarterbacks right now in the NFL. It reminds me so much of point guards in the NBA. For every Russell Westbrook, there's a Damian Lillard. For every Damian Lillard, there's a Chris Paul. For every Chris Paul, there's a Steph Curry or Kyrie Irving. It's the same thing in the National Football League, where you got the old guard that's there in Tom Brady and Drew Brees and also Aaron Rodgers. And then you get the middle-aged guys like Russell Wilson, who may win his first MVP this year. But then you got the Lamar Jacksons, the Patrick Mahomes. You also got Josh Allen, who's been tremendous in the first 3 games for the Buffalo Bills. Can't forget about Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans. So when you have that kind of competition at the quarterback position, where it's a can you top this mentality each and every week, the NFL is poised to not only have faces of the league, but faces are going to transfer itself across so many different platforms because so many jerseys are going to be sold by young men and young women or Josh Allen.
Yeah. Folks, we're here with Freddie Coleman, who is on ESPN Radio every weeknight from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. So if you are late night guy going to work, you should listen to Freddie and his good friend Ian there on ESPN Radio. Freddie, let's talk about Joe Burrow, a first-year quarterback coming into this league. I know Boomer Esiason wanted him to be in Cincinnati. He gave him the helmet on NFL Today, and maybe Joe's also from the state of Ohio. What's your impressions of him the first 3 games? And can he bring the Bengals back from basically from whatever?
Yeah, the key word there is from whatever, because we've said that a lot about Cincinnati, trying to bring them back from whatever. And he's the latest, greatest trying to do that with the Cincinnati Bengals. But he has shown me so much in the first 3 games because he has absolutely no offensive line help whatsoever. When you think about it, if his receiver could have stayed in bounds or his field goal kicker could have made a field goal in the first game against the Los Angeles Chargers, he would already have a win under his belt. And time again, he kept getting destroyed by the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line. And time again, he got up and was able to try to make a play for Cincinnati. So they have the right guy. But here's what I worry about that organization, Chris and Ewan. Can they put the pieces around him? And can he be a guy that guys will say in free agency, I want to go play with that guy? Because it's very easy to admire somebody from afar, but then you got to look at the organizational structure and can you make them better? Can they make you better? And if the answer is no on both of those accounts, then Joe Burrow's going to be fighting a losing battle for his first 2 to 3 years. And you hope that does not break him to the point where he wants to go somewhere else. I believe the Cincinnati Bengals have that, just the right quarterback, the right guy, Joe Burrow. But now it's on the organization to put an offensive line around him, to put skill position people around him, but put the right kind of guys around him that's going to build that chemistry in the locker room and bring that out to the football field where it's not just a fleeting one-shot thing where they get to the playoffs and then regress 2 to 3 years. And you don't want that for your quarterback that you believe in when it comes to Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Freddie, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk NBA. You know, I feel like I have a really good grasp of the NBA. I've always been a fan. I love following it. I got to tell you, I did not see this Miami Heat team coming. I mean, every single round, I'm basically, you know, at the start of the playoffs, I'm like, you know, they got Jimmy Butler. You know, they don't have a go-to guy in the fourth, in my opinion. He's kind of a journeyman. I've seen some good things from their younger players, especially Hero. What do you make of this Miami Heat team? And can they pull up what would be widely considered, especially in Las Vegas, the upset of the century?
Well, I said it about a week ago that I give them a puncher's chance to win the NBA Finals. I still think the Lakers are going to win it in 6, but it would not surprise me if Miami found a way to win this series for 2 reasons. Number one, Eric Spoelstra is finally getting his due, and I don't know why it took so long for him to get his due as one of the best coaches in the NBA, because he has dealt with superstars, he's dealt with an underdog team, he's dealt with a one-man gang, and he succeeded each and every time in that situation with the Miami Heat. So that's number one. This guy's one of the best prepared and best adjustment coaches in the National Basketball Association, and it's been like that for a while. But Jimmy Butler knew exactly what he was getting into, because the kind of Heat, that's exactly the kind of culture he'd be a part of. He didn't want to hear about guys complaining about this is too hard or this is this, what about my touches, or why am I not getting enough love? When he got down to Miami, he realized that guys bought into that culture. And look at that team, how they've really been put together and their attitude. Each and every player or even their coach has been either disrespected or really treated as an afterthought. Jimmy Butler was treated that way in Minnesota, Chicago, and Philadelphia. Tyler Hero, many people say he should have stayed at Kentucky one more year. Bam Adebayo, many people thought he was just going to be a journeyman center at best in the NBA. Duncan Robinson, they say he's more of a G League player, not an NBA player. All those guys have those major chips on their shoulder, and they're going to battle for each other time and time again. You look at Goran Dragic, where he was not going to come back. But then once Jimmy Butler signed up, he said, man, that's a guy I want to put. I'm not just going to leave this team, even though my body may be telling me that I should leave. And he's been a fourth quarter monster for this basketball team during this run in the playoffs. So, yeah, no one saw the Miami Heat coming, even though they had a great start to the season before the COVID-19 pandemic shut down the NBA. But Eric Spoelstra and that Heat culture, along with Jimmy Butler, it has been a perfect marriage. They don't worry about who's getting the ball. It's, okay, who's ready to make a play? Everybody is. Let's get the ball in the right hands and make that work. They've done that time and time again in the fourth quarter because everybody understands exactly what their roles are going to be. And when somebody's having a hot night, the ball finds him. They don't try to say, well, he's got too many touches. Let's go somewhere else. That culture's really worked for Miami. And Jimmy Butler has been an embodiment of that. And that's why he joined it with that organization and chose them over plenty of other teams that may have wanted his services.
That's true. Freddie, let's talk about the NBA. When this whole pandemic started, everybody was trying to figure out what to do. The NBA took 2 months. The NHL took a little bit longer. Major League Baseball said, all right, we're going to go to Arizona, but they decided not to. Let's talk about the NBA. I want to give them praises for keeping everybody healthy, because I thought they were going to be the ones that are going to be the failure of this whole pandemic thing. And, because a lot of these players they want to play for themselves, or sometimes they want to go out and go to Epcot or whatever, but they were right there, in their bubble and staying in there, and they were committed to what the NBA wanted to do.
Well, if you're going to have something like this that's going to work, because let's call it what it is, Chris and Ewan, it was a lab experiment that people wanted to see exactly what the end result was going to be. But every NBA player that was going to be a part of the bubble, every coach, every GM, and also the owners were going to be lockstep together to make sure this was going to work. And the big word about that is accountability. You did not want to be the one that was going to unravel that. You did not want to be the one to put a potential Miami Marlins situation in the bubble environment that is the NBA. So players are able to hold themselves accountable from that standpoint to say, hey, we wanted to play basketball again. We did not want our season to just go away when it came to 2020. So if we're going to do this, we're going to have to make sure that everything is going to be protected in terms of ourselves. And Adam Silver was big about that. That's why he's the best commissioner in sports, because he was going to make sure the players' interests were going to be served. But at the same time, he was going to make sure everybody was going to be on the same page. And if everybody was not going to be there, then what kind of discussions were you going to have to make sure we could find the right kind of compromise that was going to make that work? Same thing, the National Hockey League. They didn't have one positive COVID test during their run in the Stanley Cup that was won by the Tampa Bay Lightning. MLS, the same way. So the bubble environment only works when you have everybody committed to it. That's why you look at the NFL, what they've been able to do, even though they finally got the week 4 for COVID-19 cases to happen, that it didn't happen before then says a lot about accountability that was going to be the football league, not in a bubble environment. But they were able to see the path that was laid for them because of the NBA and because of the NHL. They said, we're going to do this, but everybody is going to do it together. And if you don't want to do this, then you don't have to be here. And we clearly understand that. The minute that those parameters were put out there by the NBA, it made it very easy for people to say, okay, this is going to work a lot better than anybody could have anticipated.
Freddie, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned, you said a word earlier in our interview, blessed. Chris and I have a lot of faith, and we're so blessed, and just to be able to do something like this, I'm curious, because the business that we're in is somewhat, it can be political, it can be tough to get into. Is there a situation, before you kind of, on the rise, that you really had to rely on your faith that brought you through to get to this point?
Oh, not just one time, there are plenty of times, because I tell people all the time, if I can withstand being fired 3 different times in this business, but not get out of this business, then any tough time that you're going to go through should not be as worse as we clearly understand in these tough times that those kind of things are going to raise their ugly head, and it's going to determine exactly not what kind of professional you are, but what kind of person you're going to be. And you don't have to be a faith-based person, although for me that definitely helps, because I was able to use that as a baseline for me, as a bottom line for me, to say no matter what, if I have faith in myself, even though that one door was closed, I believe I have enough talent and enough ability that another door is going to open for me. So those things were really able to keep me going, because believe me, the first time you get fired from a job like I did, it is just crushing to your soul. It's just crushing to your ego that somebody said, not only do we not want you or don't believe in you, but we don't want you around here. So take your stuff and go. But if I was able to get past that and say to myself, okay, that's not an opportunity that was there for me. They didn't believe in me, but I know somebody else is going to believe in me. So that kept me going time and time again. And I guess I never looked at from the standpoint of, okay, what's the ultimate goal? My ultimate goal, part of my faith, is to say, okay, whatever job I get a chance to get, they're going to get the best Freddie Coleman. They're going to get 100% of Freddie Coleman. And whatever the end result is going to be, then I can live with it. So even if it didn't work out, or if they decide to go with somebody else, I know I gave the best me personally and the best me professionally to put out there. And then whatever decision they made, I could completely live with it. So if I'm able to go through those kind of journeys, go through those kind of paths to get to wherever I wanted to be or wherever I felt I had to go, my faith was always going to be there to say, just keep at it and stick with it, because your time is not done trying to be a part of this business.
Awesome. Oh, man. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Freddie, one last question to ask you. Doing your show for the last 16 years, you interviewed everybody, probably from Michael Jordan to LeBron James to Tiger Woods to whoever. Who was your best athlete you had a chance to interview, and why?
Wow, that's a great question, because so many people I've had a chance to sit in the studio with them or do an interview on the phone. I still come back to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because that's one of my sports heroes when I was growing up, a native New Yorker like I am. and we were talking about UCLA basketball and the Lakers, and because Kobe Bryant had just signed his last contract, and everybody was talking about Kobe Bryant should take a pay cut and everything. And have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar ask him a question. He says, well, Freddie, when he said my name, I don't think I heard anything after for about a minute, because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the greatest, not just one of the greatest players, but in my opinion, one of the greatest sports people in the history of sports, said my name. It wasn't just something that he just threw out there. And he kept saying my name over and over in the interview. And you feel like you can fly with one of your sports heroes, and you know that you have made that connection with him. That was pretty cool to have that kind of interview. So in all the years I've been at ESPN Radio, that's been my favorite, that Kareem and I had that kind of connection. And then his publicist, after the interview was over, Kareem said, man, that's one of the favorite interviews that he's done in a long time. And he said, I want to thank Freddie for being a part of his show. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It was an honor to have him on, not the other way around. But that's still, to this day, one of the coolest people I've ever interviewed at ESPN Radio.
Yeah. Well, real quick, I had a chance to talk to Cal Ripken a lot around here, and they did the Cal Ripken World Series.
Really?
And we used to do it on the radio here in Aberdeen and Maryland, and we had the opportunity to do the games, and they were on Channel 2, a local station here, and he goes, yeah, and Chris Idell is doing the games for us here on Herbie Sports Radio. And I'm like, wow. For a minute, I'm like, excuse me? And I'm thinking there to myself going, oh my God, that was a lot of pressure on me. I'm like, I got Cal Ripken saying, like, knows my name. And then I went up to him later in the evening. I said, that day I was like, Cal, thank you very much for doing it. He goes, no, thank you. All right. Do the best you can. All right. I want you to do it. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then I saw him last year in Frederick, Maryland, watching his son play, and him and I were just sitting there talking baseball, just having talking shop.
Really?
Not no interviews, no nothing, just sitting there just talking with his wife, and him and I were joking around with umpires and all that stuff. It was like the best feeling I ever had. I'm not an Orioles fan. I'm a Met fan, and I'm thinking to myself, what just happened here?
Exactly. That's how I felt with Abdul-Jabbar. Like, how did we get here?
Yeah. I told my dad the next day, and my dad goes, you did what? I was like, I had a chance to talk to – I had a whole down night with Cal Ripken. He goes, Cal Ripken? What? What did you do? I was like, I told him, and my dad's a big sports guy, and he goes, a big baseball guy, went back in the old days. And he's like, that's pretty cool. And he goes, what did you talk about? I was like,
right.
Oh, I talked about sports, and I talked about, all that stuff. He goes, nice. And I got my dad's approval. He goes, yeah. So anyway, but thank you so much for coming on tonight. I know you're getting ready for your show tonight. Who's on your show tonight? That we at 9:00, we're going to probably log over and listen to you.
Well, we're going to be on after the NBA Finals Game 1 tonight, so we'll be on after the Lakers Heat Game 1. So we'll be on about 11:30 midnight Eastern time. And Ramona Shelburne is going to stop by to help us to break down Game 1. And she's one of my favorite people. Very talented writer, but even a better person. So I can't wait to get her perspective. She's from Game 1 with the Lakers trying to win a championship for the first time since Kobe Bryant did it back-to-back years without Shaquille O'Neal, and LeBron trying to get his 4th NBA championship in his 10th finals appearance. So we're going to have a lot of fun between 11:30 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern time right after Game 1 tonight of the NBA Finals between the Lakers and the Heat.
All right, that's great. Well, Freddie, thank you so much. Don't be a stranger. We'd love to have you back on down the road, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you so much, Freddie.
I would love to do it again. My pleasure, guys. We'd love to do it again. You guys be well, and God bless, by the way.
You too.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Folks, that's Freddie Coleman from ESPN here on Herbie FM, here on Uski and Herbie. So that was what a way to start off the show there.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm so thankful for his time. What great insight. And then, it's funny, Herbie, because when you read someone's bio, they never say, hey, he was, fired, and to hear where he is after being fired 3 times is really inspiring. So I'm so thankful that we got a chance to hear that about his journey.
Oh, yeah, and he's down to earth. He came on way before you came to check to see if the link was working, and him and I were talking. And he's from Long Island. He's a Long Island guy. I'm from so I'm from Nassau, like Oceanside. He's from Nassau County. So I was like, yeah. And he goes, I know something about you. He goes, you're a Met fan. I'm like, how did you know? He goes, I can tell. Met fans are Met fans. I'm like, you're a Met fan too? He goes, yeah, I don't like the Yankees. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, excuse me. Wow, that's crazy.
So I love the Pittsburgh Steeler room or the painting.
Yeah, well, look, here, let me show you this, and then there's Lamar.
Hey, Lamar.
And then I got a couple of my articles published here, but more stuff going up over the weekend, Herbie. So,
Nice.
yeah, and then I got the chair and the podcast equipment all ready to go. That's it. Here we go.
Awesome. All right. Well, let me give somebody a phone call here. Our good friend Dave Schumert, who is from Duke football. He's going to be on the Uski and Herbie line. So it's just what a great interview with Freddie Coleman. We could sit the whole night with him and have
he's tremendous.
Yeah. So let's get our Duke is actually going to be home this weekend against Virginia Tech, and they need a win. They're 0-3, Uski, and I heard the seat is hot for Dave Cutcliffe, up there in Durham.
It's amazing, Herb, because we talk so much about coaches in the hot seat, especially in the conference that we cover, the ACC, but rarely do you hear Cutcliffe's name mentioned, and it's out there. So the Chase Bryce experiment, I'm looking forward to talking to him about what he thinks is happening in Durham.
Exactly. So we're going to get him on the Uski and Herbie line here on Herb FM. So Dave is a busy guy, does everything for Duke basketball and football.
Hello.
Hey, Dave, it's Chris Heidel from Herb FM Radio, Uski and Herbie, and Ewan McCreeve. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you guys?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on. Just talk about Duke football, 0-3 to start the season. So what's going on there in Durham?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the easiest schedule to start the season. You looked at having to start at Notre Dame, their first ACC game, talking about the Irish being in the ACC for the first time. And, Duke fared well in that game, but it got away from them at the end. And then, you look coming home to Boston College and then at Virginia, the first three. I do think it has to be said that of those three teams, kind of one of the oddities of 2020, Duke didn't have any tape on those three teams. So Boston College had a new head coach. Virginia had some new personnel. Not to make it huge, but to give some context. But with all that being said, the last couple of weeks, the problem's been pretty straightforward. 12 turnovers in 2 games. You're not going to beat the team. And David Cutcliffe will be the first one to tell you that. So the turnovers are really the issue of what's causing the problem for Duke right now. It's what they have to clean up going into Virginia Tech.
That's true. I agree with you, Dave. Talk about the Virginia game last week. Going into the fourth quarter with a 3-point lead against the Cavaliers, who said that was their first game of the year after they were on the shelf for basically most of September with the COVID back and forth with Virginia Tech and all those other teams. And then getting shut out. So in the fourth quarter. So coming into this weekend, what do they have to do differently to not get to the fourth quarter and knowing that their fourth quarter has become a situation?
Not turn the football over, not to put too fine of a point on it, but those 3 touchdowns for Virginia, their last 3 touchdowns all came off of Duke turnovers, including one where Duke was marching in, looked like maybe to take a 10-point lead late in the third. They go with a gadget play that, ironically enough, worked really well last year at Virginia Tech when Duke won 45-10, and it wasn't there. And Jalen Calhoun tried to make a play, it got intercepted, and it turned into a 96-yard touchdown drive to the Cavaliers. So getting rid of those turnovers, and I do think also that David Cutcliffe has talked pretty openly about some concerns with conditioning. Duke has, just like everybody else, has had to deal with some injuries here early in the season, has had to deal with limited personnel because of the uniqueness of the year. So I do think there's something to be said for conditioning, but they're hoping it's something that's getting better week by week. But there's no question. Duke yet to score in the fourth quarter this year, and that's going to have to change to get a win over Virginia Tech.
David, I wanted to ask you, sometimes when I watch Chase in the pocket, I love the mechanics. I love his arm. I feel like he's accurate. And then other drives, I just don't. And I just feel like there's just such an inconsistency besides the turnovers. I mean, 6 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. How overall do you feel like he's grasping the offense? And, what do you foresee for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair question, but I think he's a really talented player. Obviously, what he did at Clemson stood out, but, these were his first collegiate starts. And I think, it's fair to be critical and for people to have questions, but I also think it's fair to give all of it some context. He hasn't been on campus for just a couple of months because of everything that's going on with the pandemic. And it's one thing to do these things over Zoom. It's another thing to learn the system in person and to have that sort of time. You combine that with the fact of, in any normal year, you'd have a couple of non-conference games to get your legs underneath you, so to speak, to learn the system, to get familiar with the personnel. So there's no question. So to me, that inconsistency speaks to getting comfortable with the system, getting comfortable with what David Cutcliffe needs from here and how that's different from Clemson. But I think that it's way too early, obviously, for people to just throw their hands up and say it's not working. I think it's just a process right now.
I totally agree with you, Dave. And David, it takes a while for new situations, to everything together, because you got to look at it. They didn't have an off season. They didn't have spring football. They had virtual football. I guess that's like what, PlayStation in their room, playing, whatever Coach Cutcliffe put it on there. But they didn't really practice against nobody. So you got Chase coming in, basically trying to learn the playbook. That basically he didn't throw it to nobody.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like I said, though, the results are the results, and that's what you're going to be judged on, and everybody here knows that. And it has to get better. And as you said, you see some signs with that. You see the ability to spread the football around. You see the ability to push things down the field. I think one of the other things that has been challenging in getting Chase Bryce going, and this is something the coaching staff has talked about, Duke really hasn't gotten the rushing game going yet. They've got the personnel. When you look at Deion Jackson and Taylor Durant, the two lead running backs, but they haven't really been able to do it consistently. And I think that's a point of emphasis this week to get the running game going. If nothing else, just to slow down the pass rush and to slow down people getting after the quarterback, because that can throw off your timing as well. So there's a lot of things that need to be fixed offensively. But I will say this, obviously I cover this team day in and day out. It has a different feel than a year ago. A year ago, there were definitely some turnover problems throughout the year, but there was also problems with just being able to consistently move the football. Duke this year has consistently moved the football. That hasn't been an issue. So you feel more optimistic that once the turnovers get cleaned up, that they're actually onto something offensively, even though it doesn't look like it on the scoreboard right now.
Well, they actually marched right through Notre Dame the first game. They were going right through that defense, and that's a top 5 defense for Notre Dame, and they're just going right through it, and you get a field goal here and a field goal there, and and miss a touchdown pass here, but that, like you said, I totally agree with you. That offense, if you get the interceptions cleaned up, it's going to be a lights out type of offense, and whoever plays them better watch out.
Yeah, and it's judged on points per game. So I mean, that's the only set that matters. David Cutcliffe says that over and over again. So they do need to start finishing some of these drives. They do need to get clear of some of these turnover issues, but I do think they feel like they're not as far away, as I said, as maybe the record looks right now.
Exactly. Well, Dave, thanks so much. I know you're driving. Thanks for coming on tonight, and good luck with the broadcast. You can listen to Dave. He's on the Duke ING Sports. Is this ING still running you guys on radio?
Learfield ING College.
Okay, and you can just go on XM radio and listen to Dave and our other Dave and all the people who do Duke football. So, Dave, good luck, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Thanks, appreciate it.
All right, folks. That is Dave Schumert, the voice of Duke football. They're, like I said, they're 1-2 plays away. If they get that interception ratio down, they could hang with Miami. They can hang with Clemson. They can hang with people who are putting up points in this league.
You know what? I think that they can, but I think David touched on something that is very profound, and that is the lack of running game. I mean, what do we say all the time? It seems like we talk about every week. A quarterback's best friend is a good running game, and Duke just has not performed despite having a very experienced, very good offensive line.
Exactly. Well, at 7:34, we were going to talk in the beginning of the show before we got Freddie Coleman to come and join us. And folks, if you missed that, we will replay the interview on our website on herbfmsportsradio.webley.com. We'll put it on the front page, and you guys can listen to you and I and Freddie talk about everything, every sport there is, pretty much, except for we didn't talk about golf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or NHL.
Yes, exactly. Well, let's talk about over the weekend. Last weekend, big games over this past weekend. You had the SEC finally got underway, and everybody in America thinks it's football is back because the SEC is back and running. You know, it's like the NFL, and we get one game in the NFL, everybody's just back and love it. You know, like
hey, it's great to have the SEC. I don't know if you got a chance to talk with Freddie about the Tigers, but wow, KJ Costello, huh? How about the veteran, the wily veteran? If we can call college players veterans, he's one of them. But, you know, with all the talk of Miles Brennan, he's the one who overshadowed him. What an unbelievable performance in the upset against LSU to start things off.
Yeah, I didn't know Costello came from, I don't know, that name was familiar, folks. He was with Stanford last year at this time.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And he's seen a lot. And quite frankly, I mean, Mike Leach has got to be thrilled that he's got him under center. He's seen all the defenses. He's poised. He's older. You know, I mean, wow, what a way to open the season going into, you know, Baton Rouge and beating the Tigers, the defending champions like that. So unbelievable. Florida looks fantastic in the SEC. Maybe it's a two-horse race. In Georgia, ooh, man, they got a scare early. Whoa, Herbie.
Yeah. Well, I had a chance to listen to Coach Orgeron after the game on Saturday, and he's not really happy about losing to Mike Leach and Mississippi State. So here's a quick clip from our production people.
I give credit to Coach Leach. He had his team ready to play. They beat us. We have no excuses. And when we don't win, I told the team, put it on me. I got to coach them better. 632 yards, 623 yards passing, man-to-man coverage. We couldn't stay with the guys. We made too many mistakes. We did not protect the quarterback. When we did protect the quarterback, we were late on some throws. We wasn't right on a couple of reads. Miles did make some good plays. We dropped too many balls. I think our offense woke up in the second half. We ran the ball.
Yeah, he said the second half they woke up. Yeah, they did wake up in the second half, but I think Costello was basically, you know, that game was Mississippi State far from halftime on.
Yeah, no doubt, Herb. I mean, they just dug such a big hole. And, I mean, give credit to Mike Leach. He came out and he attacked from the get-go. Throwing the ball down the field. Costello was really good in the pocket, and you know, he was showing just shades of his accuracy and his consistency. He was pretty careful with the football, and I mean, wow, what a game! I mean, unbelievable. It's great to have the SEC back, and we can't wait. Hey, Big Ten, we miss you. Come back soon. We got another week or two.
Yeah. Well, we got this gentleman on. We had him during the summer. Kevin Stone is joining us from New England Football Journal. Kevin, thanks for joining us. Your Boston College Eagles are 2-0, but last week that was a sweat. You know, get that sweat off your brow, and you know, maybe get a nice cold drink or something. But wow, you know, always losing to Texas State.
It wasn't pretty, but thanks for having me back on, guys. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was in the press box that night, and it was scary to say the least. But again, new team, new coach, kind of finding ways to win still, and that's really kind of the theme for them. So they found a way, and obviously Texas State, they helped them out quite a bit with a couple terrible penalties late in that game. But late in the game, Phil Jakovic, he's been great in the second half so far. I believe he is second in the country right now. I have the numbers in front of me. He is second in the country with 368 yards in the second half so far. And he is third nationally with a 77.8 completion percentage in the last 30 minutes of a game. So they have that clutch gene so far late. But they have a huge test this weekend.
Yeah, Kevin, I watched that game, and, quite frankly, I think Texas State is better than, is a lot better team than most people, give them credit for. But, there was a point in the fourth quarter, I forgot what the sideline reporter was, but she had mentioned that Phil was going up and down, kind of rallying the troops. Could that, and they came back to win the game. Is this maybe a turning point for this BC team in terms of leadership and moxie and just kind of intestinal fortitude, the way they came back after he kind of got everyone galvanized?
Yeah, so, he's still a young guy himself, actually. Coach Hafley referenced him today, and he called him a rookie, which he really is. So that's great to see, that kind of leadership. But as a whole, I think there's just a completely different tone to this program from last year. Pretty much everybody is a leader on that staff and on that team. So between having to sacrifice and being a bubble for 3 months now, and doing it for one another, they've talked about that a lot. So I think the whole team really has a great leadership quality to them. But to have a young quarterback, as you pointed out, kind of doing that when things really didn't look very good for the offense, that's huge going forward.
Exactly. Folks, we're here with Kevin Stone, who writes for the New England Football Journal. There's a lot of things up there in New England. Kevin, North Carolina comes to town. They haven't played in 2 weeks. They were supposed to play against Charlotte, and that got postponed because of COVID-19, and now they're playing Western Carolina in November. What is Boston College got to do to a team that hasn't played in 2 weeks? I know they're going to see a lot of rust because when you don't have things going, every week, you're going to be rusty. But This is North Carolina, who has a very good quarterback and a very good defense, who barely shut out Syracuse in the fourth quarter.
So the quarterback is going to be an issue. Sam Howell, he hasn't gotten nearly enough hype really around the country. They know he's going to be a problem. They're locked in and focused on him. But for them, it's all about the start. At least in my opinion, it is. And the offensive line as well. The offensive line really should be one of the best in the country. I believe it was 4 of the 5 starters returned from last year. So they should have the continuity, to be one of the top units in the country. They struggled last week. They can't struggle this week. This offense is going to have to score points. But you mentioned the layoff. Coach Hafley talked about it today. It really helps North Carolina. You can get guys back that are injured. You can now watch, 2 weeks of film on BC. So I think that layoff, it really helps North Carolina. Now, granted, not having game action for 3 weeks, that's tough to kind of ramp back up. But Mac Brown's a great coach, and they shouldn't have a problem ramping it up.
Kevin, we talk a little bit about Sam Howell, but a lot of the hype goes to, his 2 stud wide receivers, Daz Newsome, Diami Brown. How do you think this is a quarterback who's a gunslinger by every definition? He throws a pretty good deep ball. Walk us through the matchup with BC secondary against these 2 great wide receivers.
So they're a little thin back there, particularly at safety. Deion Jones got hurt in the last game. He's a big loss for them back there. He's probably not going to play this week. For me, it's not necessarily about the secondary. It's more about their pass rush. Their pass rush can fly off the edges as long as they get off blocks. Their linebackers are very, very good. Max Richardson, Isaiah McDuffie, really 2 of the more underrated linebackers, probably in the ACC. So they're going to – that front 7 – they're going to be, the key to the defense. The secondary is still very young. They're getting better, but again, it's only 2 games in. So I actually think that the front 7 and that pass rush, that's going to be the key to them slowing down Howell and that offense.
Exactly. Well, Kevin, let's just talk about what's your prediction for this game on Saturday, 3:30 on ABC. Up there at Chestnut Hill. I guess Joe Tessitore and all those people will be joining you.
Yeah, it's a big one when they're in town. So, look, UNC probably wins the game, but don't be surprised if it's a lot closer than the 14-point spread that it is right now. Again, UNC has not played in 3 weeks. 14 points is a lot of points. So I think it's going to be a lot closer than what Vegas clearly thinks and what a lot of other people think too. For me, offensively, the offense has to take advantage of their drives. They left a lot of points on the board. They had 209 yards worth of punts last weekend. They only had 297 yards of offense. That can't happen again. Which is that's the same reaction I had.
Wow.
So that obviously can't happen again. But look, man, I think this is a close game. I'm going to say like 24-21 UNC, but I'm pulling for BC.
All right, there you go. Well, Kevin, tell everybody where they can find you. I know you do Boston College. You're pretty excited about UMass because they're going to be doing it. You're going to start rubbing up soon with football because I guess we found some kind of miracle drug that everybody's playing now.
Don't even get started. There's 36 states playing high school football right now, and we're not one of them. So don't even get me started on that. But you can find my partner John at new FTBJ. That's Twitter and Instagram. I am at KStone06, and our website is nefootballjournal.com.
All right, Kevin. Thank you so much for coming on and enjoy the games this weekend. Hopefully the weather's nice up there in the fall game up there in New England. New England must be pretty this time of the year.
Yeah, it's awesome. Guys, I appreciate you having me on. I look forward to doing it again, at some point down the road.
Thanks. All right, Kevin. Talk to you soon. All right, folks. It's Kevin Stone who does a good job for the New England Football Journal up there. Let's talk about the ACC schedule this weekend. Uski, we got some big games coming up on the ACC's docket. NC State Wolfpack traveling to Pittsburgh. Is Pittsburgh ever going to leave Pittsburgh? Because they've been there for. I was going to get our good friend, Jerry Vitolo on because I just feel like they're going to stay in Pittsburgh. They're not going to leave, and they're going to be healthy, and they're going to go to the ACC title game because they're stuck in Pittsburgh. But now they're their fourth straight game against NC State at home, and then like we just talked about the North Carolina Boston College game at 3:30. Then you got Virginia Tech and Duke at 4. So let's start with the first one. Who's going to win that game?
I like Pitt at home. I thought they played tough, but they made some big mistakes against Louisville, but they still were able to hold a highly prolific Louisville offense to just 20 points. So not a lot of tape on NC, but on the Wolfpack. But I like Pitt at home, even though that there's not a and no fans. But I like Kenny Pickett. I think he's going to make decisions, and I think Pitt wins that game. Herb, the Tar Heels Boston College, I love it when Kevin was like, hey, they're a 2-touchdown favorite, and it's going to be a lot closer. I think he's telling us to empty our bank accounts and put it on BC. I got to tell you, I like the rookie quarterback, how he got everybody going. It takes a leader to do that at whatever level. And I think behind that, they will be able to keep it close. But I think too much Sam Howell at the end of the day. And Duke, hey, man, I'm rooting for them hard because you know what, Herbie, we talked earlier in the show about David Cutcliffe. He's one of our favorite people. Yeah. And I'm rooting for him to get a big conference win this week against the Hokies.
Yeah, he is one of our favorites, and when we get a chance to go to the ACC kickoff, hopefully next year everything's back to normal. Him and I have a good conversation about dieting and what not to eat in the ACC kickoff.
Yeah, he's just such a personable guy. It's so easy to root for him, Herbie. So you asked me, what are your takes?
Well, I'm thinking Pitt's going to win. They're going to be 4-0. They're going to be 4-0 for the first time, I think, since 1990. Wow. Yeah, our good friend EJ, who is the PR guy up there in Pitt, sent me the email today. But, they haven't been undefeated in so long. It's almost like in the middle of the 70s when Pitt was actually dominant with Tony Dorsett and Liam and, what's his name? Majors is the Liam Majors. That's the guy on TV. Whose guy was Liam Majors. Folks, if you want to send me an email about that, that's fine. I don't mind about that. It's like home improvement. Anyway, North Carolina and Boston College. I feel like North Carolina is going to have a great game up there because they've been sitting around for 2 weeks. they were ready to go against this Charlotte thing, and Charlotte had a problem, and that kind of went down the haywire. They were supposed to try to get somebody in between this Boston College game and didn't get one because they were all talking about Coastal Carolina playing North Carolina because they both had the same bye week. But I feel like Sam Howell's really bored, tired of playing PlayStation, and he wants to score some points.
It's going to be a huge challenge. Kevin mentioned something, Herbie, that I think will play big. Is that the Boston College Eagles secondary is thin.
Right.
And when obviously pressure on the quarterback, but Sam Howell's a very effective passer outside the pocket. I think he has a above average pocket presence. So while you want to penetrate and get pressure, you also want to stay in your lanes and make sure he does not break the pocket. He's also an effective runner, and he can also run for first downs as well.
Exactly. And then the 4 o'clock game, Virginia Tech against Duke. I'm going to go with Duke because Duke is at home. They need to get a win so they can keep David Cutcliffe around for a little bit longer because he's such a nice guy. And
I love him.
Yeah, I love the guy, and he's great to talk to, and he gets fired up. Like a couple of years ago with that Miami taking that game-winning kickoff return, he was fired up the next day, and he wanted to play. He was fired up. That's how, he was so angry about what happened. So, and then you got the 2 non-conference games. We have coming up at 8 o'clock. We have Mike Paris, who is the voice of Jacksonville State, the Gamecocks. No, not the South Carolina Gamecocks. Not those Gamecocks. These Gamecocks rolling into Tallahassee playing my 0-2 Florida State Seminoles. And don't get me started about last week, okay? I am still sore and raw from that game, okay? That was a beating I have never seen in my entire life. Even it trickled down from Florida State losing on Saturday to me losing to fantasy football to my mother. Hi, Mom. You won, okay? Good. But yeah, that was just a bad game. But Miami, speaking of Miami, next week, big game in Death Valley. I think Dabo is. I hope Dabo does not look ahead. Because they got Virginia this weekend. At 8 o'clock on ABC Network. Because you got Miami. Miami's clicking. I hope Dabo is not looking ahead and forgetting that they got Virginia coming to town.
Somehow, I don't think he will. But Herbie, Mike Paris is in the chat room. If you wanted to bring him in,
Yes, we'll bring in Mike. Mike, are you there?
Yes. Can you see me?
I see a piece of paper.
That's my format sheet I've been working on all afternoon. See a mess that I've got here. All right. So I need to flip this, don't I?
Yes, we see a lot of good stuff there. We got candles. It got a microphone that's plugged in. Folks, if you see anything else, please send us an email. We probably missed something there.
Where? How can I don't know how to turn it. Where do I flip? Let's see.
Let's see. I think it's the next one you flip. I think you flip the next one. Okay, or just turn the camera or turn towards you. It's okay.
Well, it's turned. I'm looking at my computer. I do not understand.
Okay.
No worries, Mike. We can just.
We got your voice. We got your voice.
All right. I have a face for radio anyway.
Good idea. Well, Mike, thanks for joining us. Big game for you guys. First of all, explain to the folks here on Herbie Radio. You guys are supposed to play in the spring, but you were allowed to play 4 non-conference games?
That is correct. We're in the Ohio Valley Conference, and ours was actually the last league in FCS football to make the decision not to play in the fall, but they left it up to each individual school that if you wanted to play up to 4 games in the fall, you could do so. And our plan is to play a spring schedule, and everybody's saying the spring, but it's really spring semester. The NCAA, FCS playoffs are handled by the NCAA. They administer those. And so we're going to start a season in the spring, either February 20th or February 27th, and play 6 or 7 games in the spring. We'll play just a conference schedule, and then they will have the FCS playoffs. Normally it's a 24-team field. They've cut it back because of everything that's happened to a 16-team field. And the FCS playoffs will start mid-April and go into mid-May. So we didn't have this game with Florida State. We're actually scheduled to play them in 2021. Samford University, which is in Birmingham, roughly an hour from us, was scheduled to play Florida State. And then they decided they weren't going to play a fall schedule within the Southern Conference. They were allowed to play some games they wanted to. They decided not to. So that opened the door for us to get the Florida State game. So we're playing Seminoles on Saturday. This will be our opener. And then we have a home game on the 10th of October against Mercer University, which is in the Southern Conference with Samford. And then the 17th, we go to play an in-state rival, the University of North Alabama, and we wrap up our 4 games in the fall on Friday, the 23rd of October, down at FIU is where we're going to play. And that was originally scheduled to be our season opener back on September 3rd, I think is when it was supposed to be.
And Mike, I want to ask you, for someone who tried to look up some information on the team, but I'll pose the question to you. What are the strengths of this team, and how do they match up with what you've seen from Florida State thus far this season?
Well, there's a lot of unknowns. Basically, we're returning only 3 starters defensively. So we've got a lot of young guys will be playing there on Saturday. Offensively, it starts with our quarterback, Zary Cooper. He's a Clemson transfer. He actually was the number 1 guy at one time. Kelly Bryant replaced him as a starter. That was before some guy named Trevor Lawrence came in there, So, but Coop transferred to us. This will be his 3rd year, and he's thrown for almost 7,000 yards in his 2 years here. 60 touchdowns, I should say, and 26 picks. So it all starts with him. We have 2 running backs returning from last year, Michael Matthews, who was our leading rusher, and Uriah West. We've added 2 JUCO guys into that mix as well. Our receivers, we're very young there. We lost our top 3 guys from a year ago. In fact, one of them's with the Bucs now in the Tampa Bay camp on their practice squad, Josh Pearson. He's one of the all-time leading receivers in the history of our football program. And we've got 2 outstanding tight ends. Unfortunately, both of them missed a lot of time a season ago. They're coming back. Trey Berry's a guy that's a preseason All-American, and then Landon Rice is a transfer from Auburn. So we've got 2 outstanding guys there. The problem is, to me, after watching Florida State, and I know the first 2 weeks haven't gone anything like they wanted them to or thought they would go, but they have – they're behemoths up front to me. Those are men that playing on the front for them, and then they follow that up with guys coming in, in the 2 deep. They're just as big. And to me, can we block them? I think it's going to be the big thing. We've got 3 starters returning from last year's offensive line of scrimmage, but I just, nobody in our league or the people we play for the most part, we don't face that kind of size and athleticism. And I don't know what you know about our program, but I'll go back. We played in Tallahassee back in 2009. Christian Ponder was a starting quarterback at that time at Florida State. E.J. Manuel backed him up. Rodney Hudson was a name I remember from that team as well. And then Greg Reed on defense and some other guys as well. But we had a 9-7 lead in the last minute of the game. It came a monsoon right before kickoff, just a deluge. Kept the crowd down some. But we actually had a 9-7 lead in the final minute of the game. Florida State scored and went ahead, missed the extra point, kicked off. We fumbled the kickoff. They recovered, and they scored basically the next play. We ended up losing 19-9 as it turned out. Then we go to Ole Miss and beat them in 2010, and then most recently at Auburn in 2015, had a chance to win down there and got beat in overtime at Auburn. That was a team that at that time was ranked, I think, number 6, number 8 in the nation going in, and they didn't end up the year that way. But we've played in these venues. I guess the last one we played 3 years ago, Georgia Tech. So we've played at Tech 3 times. We're Jacksonville, Alabama, roughly an hour and a half from Atlanta. So we've played, in the SEC at Mississippi State. As I mentioned, Auburn. We've been to Kentucky, down to Gainesville, played the Gators. This will be our second trip to Florida State. And then we played Georgia Tech. And several years back, went out, to Kansas and played. And about, I guess it's been 20 years ago now. Wow, didn't realize it's been that long. We played down at South Florida as well when Jim Levitt was the head coach down there. So, we've been in this atmosphere and venue. I think one thing obviously that will be in our favor is the fact that what's the crowd, 19 to 20,000, something like that. So see if that helps. In these games that you play, we can match up in certain spots, so to speak. I don't know if you're familiar with FCS football. You have 63 total scholarships is what you have. You can have 85 on scholarship, but you have 63 scholarships total, and you can split them up. So the difference comes in when you start getting down the depth chart on the 2 deep or you go 3 deep. That's where the biggest difference comes in. And obviously they're going to be a little bigger, probably better athletes at most positions, and then their depth could be a determining factor as well. Games like this, if you're a Jacksonville State, you got to get off to a good start. Can't afford any busted assignments or big plays, and where they get out to a 21-0 lead in a hurry or something like that. And just try to hang around as long as you can and put a little pressure on them and hopefully make something happen there and be there at the end with a chance to win.
Exactly. Well, Mike, I think I had you on the radio side a couple of years ago because I know you guys been into the SPF playoffs and you played a Colonial Athletic Conference team. I think you played Maine, right?
Yes, we played at Maine 2 years ago.
Yeah,
we did. We were in the championship. We were in the championship game in FCS in 15. A guy by the name of Carson Wentz was the quarterback at North Dakota State at that time. So we lost in the championship game to them. From 14 through 19, we won consecutive Ohio Valley Conference championships. First time anybody's ever done that. 14 through 18, we won 5 in a row during that time, and we were in the playoffs from 2013 through 2018. Bill Clark, the head coach at UAB, is a graduate of Jacksonville State, and he took over the program in 2013, and he was here for 1 season. We got to the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs that year, lost out at Eastern Washington. Vernon Adams, remember, left Eastern Washington, went to Oregon as their quarterback there for his senior season. We lost to them in 2013. John Gross, head coach at Jacksonville State, was the OC on that staff in 2013, took over as head coach in 2014, and has had a phenomenal run, 58-18, I guess. And last year, by far, the toughest season that he's had to go through and deal with in 2019.
That's true. Well, Mike, thanks so much for coming on, and good luck with the state trips to Tallahassee. And if anybody want to watch that game, it's actually going to be on the ACC regional network with Tom Warren and James Bates is going to be doing the broadcast. So hopefully you guys have a good time with them in the press box, and hopefully the game does really well.
Hopefully we'll have a fun time. You just never know. Wait and see what happens. Looking forward to the trip. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
All right, folks. That was Mike Parris, who is the voice of the Gamecocks of Jacksonville State. So we're going to be playing the Seminoles of Florida State on Saturday at 4. You can watch it on many of your local channels in your area. Tom Warren and James Bates will be doing the call for the folks there. He loves going to Tallahassee, but James Bates is a Gator guy.
Yeah, you know what? I was watching his broadcast, and he dropped a Kenny Powers reference last week. It was great. I meant to send him a message on Twitter. So, well,
Great.
Hey, I Jacksonville State. I mean, you give them a fighting chance against the behemoths and the athletes against Florida State. I'm not sure, but I think it's just going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, honestly, Herbie, I got to tell you, anything less than a 40-point win for Florida State is going to be embarrassing, in my opinion.
Hey, I got to take a line from Bob Uecker in Major Leagues. If Florida State wins, thank God. Well, the big game this weekend we are previewing here on Uski and Herbie. Next week we're going to be working on what day we'll be broadcasting. I think it all depends on somebody in their studio. We'll get it up and running.
Yeah, I think Tuesday or Thursday, Herb. I mean, Tuesday would probably be a little bit better for me.
Okay.
But, we'll try
special edition Tuesday night. Let's do it at 8 o'clock because I work till 7 next week to help out people. So
Sounds good.
Yeah. So we'll do it next Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, 8 to 9 here on Uski and Herbie, a special edition. We're going to be previewing the next week. We're going to be talking Canes Tigers, but this week we're going to talk Cavaliers and Tigers, a rematch of the ACC title game from last year. And I think Clemson's still running them out of the stadium.
Oh, man. Yeah, honestly, I was surprised. Our friends over in the West Coast in Las Vegas have instilled the Tigers as a 29-point favorite. And wow, I mean, yeah, Bryce Perkins is gone. And Virginia, picked up a nice come from behind win last week against Duke. But goodness, this Clemson team, we have not seen it hit on all cylinders yet.
Right.
But man, it should. Next week's going to be a phenomenal game. I think this is just a precursor leading up to the Canes Tigers showdown.
Exactly. Well, I had a chance to listen to some audio video from the folks at Clemson who sent me the link to listen to Trevor Lawrence. Somebody in the media there in South Carolina asked Trevor Lawrence about playing against Virginia because last year against Virginia he smoked them. It was like I think I got the stats here. He was 16 for 22 for 304 yards with 4 touchdowns in the title game. And then he was replaced in the third quarter by Chad Bryce.
Right.
Yeah,
hopefully, honestly, because we just love seeing competitive football. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point. I mean, obviously, our friends out in Las Vegas know what they're doing. I'm not going to say that they're on the same level. Of course, Virginia, I mean, just losing Bryce Perkins is a huge loss. But can they even stay in the game? Can they stay within 30 points of Clemson in the third quarter? I think that's big. And then, coaches use this term, Herbie, measuring stick. You want to know where your team is at, play the Clemson Tigers, you'll find out quick.
Exactly. Well, let's listen to the future number 1 pick in the NFL. He might go to the Dolphins. You never know. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence.
Games from last year too. Virginia does a really good job of they stay disciplined. They don't really have many guys out of place. You can tell they're really well coached and they know what they're doing. So they do a really good job for sure.
All right. Well, he was asked about look at me. I guess he got cut off there about playing against Virginia, and Virginia just played their first game last week. So he still has footage from last year, but that's a different footage like we just talked about. So so Trevor Lawrence is ready to go, and we also have to talk Dabo Swinney because Dabo's a good salesman. I think he used to sell insurance before he became a coach.
Honestly, no, I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But speaking of selling, another incredible recruiting class. I mean, they just continue to come to Clemson. Outstanding freshmen, but then you got veterans like Travis Etienne, who's are going to solidify. Will they be challenged? Even next week against Miami. I mean, that's going to be the game of the ACC calendar. And, the Canes are coming on strong. Let's not forget about Notre Dame. They didn't play last week because of an outbreak. But I honestly, Herb, I love having Notre Dame in the ACC, and I hope they stay.
Exactly. I think this gentleman right here, Dabo Swinney, will agree with you. Because he talked about it a couple of weeks ago about I think Notre Dame should stay in the conference. But yeah, right now let's go to Dabo. He talked about what Virginia looked like and what Bronco Mendenhall has been doing since taking over.
Obviously, this is a rematch of the ACC championship game last year, and they were there for a reason. This is a team that in a culture and a program that's been building each year. They're probably one of the more experienced teams out there. Got a lot of guys back offensively. We saw Armstrong some last year, but not a ton. So getting a chance to see him this past Saturday was really good. Other than he's a challenge. He's a problem. He's a really good player. Looks like a young Steve Young running around out there. Lefty, crafty, creative, extends plays, tough runner, really good size, accurate thrower, really has no fear, puts the ball up, trusts his guys.
Yeah, that was when you talking to the head coach of Clemson, talking about Virginia with their new quarterback Armstrong. That looks like a small version of Steve Young. So that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, he's a scrambler, and he's got some nifty feet back there. So we'll see how he plays. I think, a lot of these times against Clemson, Herb, you've got to come out and just settle things down, run the football, keep the football away from Trevor Lawrence, just so you have a chance to stay in the game. I mean, the amount of pressure that's put on an opposing offense because Clemson is such a prolific offense cannot be overstated. So how do you take that pressure away? Yes, you got to score points, but take the air out of the football, run the football, and limit the possessions of the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, speaking of Clemson, we got the voice of the Clemson Tigers with us, Don Munson, who does everything down there in good old down there in Clemson, South Carolina. Don, it's going to be a busy next couple of weeks for you. You got the 8:00 game against Virginia, and then next week maybe game day in town for the Canes and the Tigers.
Yeah, I'd be a little surprised if game day comes here, to be honest with you guys. But we'll see, because you got to look at obviously other games that are going on nationally, and I realize that maybe it'd be a 2 top 15, maybe even 2 top 10 teams that would be going at one another by that time. But we'll see what happens. But that would mean that they had been to Miami 3 out of 5 weeks or something like that. So, or had Miami involved. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Well, Don, let's talk about this game against Virginia. You and I were down there last year for this game in Bank of America, in December, and Tigers just completely dominated from the first snap to the final whistle. So, what is Coach Sweeney going to do to keep it going? Because they haven't beat Virginia in a regular season game so far.
Well, Chris, I mean, if you know Coach Sweeney, he's not even thinking about that. I mean, that's in the rearview mirror. He's only concerned about, as he likes to call it, his windshield mentality. What's right in front of me? All right, what he can take care of. That was last year's team. One of his other favorite saying is that last year's touchdowns don't count this year. Doesn't mean, hey, Trevor, just because you had 20 plus touchdowns throwing last, doesn't mean you're going to do that again this year. Travis, same thing for you. All that kind of stuff. So he's great at getting his guys focused week to week. Now, I will tell you, he'll have them focused, and he'll have them ready to play at a certain level. Best is the standard. That's another one of the phrases, obviously, that's used around here at Clemson. And more often than not, a Clemson team, when they show up on the field, whether it be at home, away, or wherever, they're going to bring their A game. So, Virginia's going to need to bring their A game into this thing on Saturday night.
Hey, Don, you've been around this program so long. We always talk about, what we see early and areas of improvement that will show up against better teams, more competitive teams. Where do you see those areas in this year's team early on?
Well, I think let's start on the defensive side of the football, up on that defensive line. Right now they're playing a lot of young kids. When I say young kids, I mean like true freshmen or guys that are redshirt freshmen. So those guys, they're talented. I mean, don't get me wrong. You've seen obviously with Miles Murphy and Brian Bursey, those guys could play anywhere. I mean, they could absolutely play, but they're freshmen. So they're going to have to kind of learn and grow as they move along. Also, you're trying to establish some depth there. Clemson is a team, if you watch them, they love to rotate players at defensive end and also at defensive tackle. They usually, have about 4 or 5 guys that they try to rotate at defensive tackle, and then they may go as many as 5 or 6 deep at defensive end if they can get away with that, just to keep guys fresh. But it's not only that, it's also to give guys experience, because one of the things that Coach Sweeney loves to do is play a ton of players. Nobody played more players, on average per game, not just last year, but over the last several years than William Christopher Sweeney. I mean, he's done that. We played 96 against the Citadel 2 weeks ago. And, last year we had 2 games where we played over 100, including 114 against Charlotte in that game. So he's going to play a lot of guys. But that defensive line certainly is one of them. Obviously, the defensive backfield as well. Yeah, you've got Nolan Turner that's back there, and you got Darian Kendrick that's back there in that defensive backfield. But then other than that, you just don't have a ton of experience. So they got to play some young bodies, and I think that's probably some concern, especially with this Virginia team, who at least in their one game against Duke showed that they can match up big wide receivers and throw the ball, a lot of 50-50 balls, and let them try to go get it. So that's going to be a challenge. Then when you look at it, obviously on the offensive side, it's the same thing right there in the trenches. They love what they have first team offensive line wise, but they've got to establish some depth. And I think that second team offensive line certainly is a little bit of a concern at this point in time. But again, they're going to try to give guys opportunities if they can to get in there and get some game experience and get it going.
Yeah. Well, Don, I was also doing some homework this afternoon. I was reading the game notes. Clemson has a chance to, right now, they have a chance to win their 24th straight consecutive game against an ACC opponent, and that's going to tie the record set by the Seminoles, the Noles from 98 to 2001. That's a stat I didn't even know was still out there.
There's a lot of stats probably that are still out. Chris, the most amazing one to me that's going on right now is if you were a freshman, a true freshman, and you showed up in 2017, you've never lost a home game. All right? Just think about what I just said. All right? We have 11 guys on the 120-man roster that were part of the 2016 team, all of them redshirted or are fifth-year seniors at this point in time for whatever reason. You've got 11 guys who have suffered a loss at home. That's it. So, I mean, it's amazing when you start looking at some of these numbers of what Clemson football has done over really the last 5 or 6 years, what this program has become. People obviously want to talk about all the bursts into the college football playoffs, and it's a great thing. But, I didn't believe in my lifetime necessarily that I would see a dominant run like Florida State had. When they had those 14 years of finishing top 5 in the country, that was just amazing. But I'm not so sure that we may not see it again with what this Clemson football program is going to do, because I'm telling you, as good as this team is, that in the future, like next year's team has a chance to be even better. The year after that, they have a chance to be even better. The way all the recruits that are coming into the program and the way the recruiting line is going right now.
Yeah. Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Don, I was also, you guys have good facilities now. You guys upgraded the football area, and I want to go, if I ever make it to Clemson, you and I are going to have a bowling match. I heard there's a bowling alley down there.
There's 2 bowling alleys. And it's just like you can find at your bowling alley in your favorite town. So, I mean, it's all computer controlled, and, the electronic scoring for you and everything. That obviously is part of the football operations building. And certainly that building has changed, changed things. It's a wow factor. I mean, when you bring a young man on campus to be recruited to Clemson and their family, and you can show them around basically this 140,000 square feet of space that's there. And that's just what's inside. On the back side of the building is what I call Dabo land. I mean, there's a basketball court, there's a volleyball court, there's a putt-putt course that's back there. There's horseshoe pits. There's a wiffle ball field.
Oh, no way.
I mean, there's grills. I mean, it's incredible. Fire pits, everything that you could possibly want, and players have access to it 365, 24/7. So they can bring their friends over, and coach encourages that. And really what it has done is that the players don't want to leave the facility or come back to the facility even on a weekend. And what you find out is that team chemistry really is a big boost because of that, because the guys are around one another and hobnobbing with one another, and so many of them enjoy, like activities.
Don, I want to ask you something. When this Clemson well-oiled offensive machine gets rolling. We were talking a little bit before you came on the air with us. The amount of pressure that it puts on the opposing offense I just can't quantify it. That being said, I have a friend of mine who's a Cavalier fan who said we've got to run the football and take the air out of the ball and limit Clemson possessions. I always find, depending on who they're playing, I always find two approaches. Hey, run the ball, take the air out, let the play clock go down, limit Clemson's possessions. Or if you feel like you have the firepower, what do you got to lose? Go for it on fourth down, trick plays. You really have nothing to lose. But how do you see this game playing out in terms of Virginia's strategy against Clemson?
Well, let me tell you, the key part of that strategy is that means that you have to out-physical Clemson. So tell me the last time that Clemson was out-physical. Basically since 2015, their first appearance in this run in the national championship game. Even that game against Alabama, Alabama didn't out-physical. You could maybe go to the 2017 Sugar Bowl when Alabama, took care of business in that. But even in that game, Alabama only had less than 240 yards of total offense in that game. It was turnovers that got Clemson in trouble in that contest. And so, when was the last time that happened? When was the last time that somebody had great success of running against Brent Venables' defense? LSU certainly was able to do it, but they were able to do it because of all the passing ability that they had as well. But, it's just been a while since Clemson was actually, kind of dominated on a football field. Usually it's the other way around. So that's a great theory and it's a great concept, but good luck doing that against Brent Venables because Brent Venables isn't going to let you do that.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Don, thanks so much for coming on tonight. I know you're going to get yourself ready for this big game. I know you and Dabo did your Tiger Talk, Mondays you do that?
We do that on Monday from 8 to 9, yep.
Yep. And then you guys get ready for the game Saturday night. You'll be live. What's the pregame show? You can listen to it on XM Radio or any Sirius.
Yeah, we'll hit the air. I'll hit the airways at 7:00. It's officially an 8:05 kick with a possible 5-minute slide, so it could kick at 8:10. So, but we'll have everything ready. Tim Beret, Reggie Merriweather, and myself will have everybody ready for the game. We'll have about 19,000 people that will be there in Memorial Stadium in Death Valley, which is a little different. We're so used to having 80,000 plus packed in there, but it'll be fun.
No fun. Well, thank you so much for coming on and enjoy the broadcast this weekend.
Appreciate it. Always good to spread a little gospel of the Clemson Tigers.
All right. Don, thanks, Don.
All right. Thanks, man. All right. Get my mouse screw.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Well, my computer is not working.
Yeah.
We got it. Yeah, my mouse is really being stupid. So, anyway, that's a great interview with Don Munson. We had a good time. We always have a good time with him.
Sure.
Yeah.
What a great show tonight. I mean, what an absolutely phenomenal show tonight. We want to thank all of our guests tonight, Herbie. Just a fantastic show, including Freddie Coleman and Kevin Stone from BC and David Shumat, the play-by-play guy from Duke, and of course Don from Clemson. What a great show. Any parting thoughts to end the broadcast, Herb?
Well, I hope my final thought is I hope Florida State wins because we're 0-3.
Oh, you'll be. Well, honestly, I will have to call a suicide watch if.
But it's also going to be a great weekend for football because you got the FCC, in week 2. You got Alabama taking on Texas A&M. Jimbo, somehow got to get a win there, Jimbo. I miss talking to that gentleman, but hopefully beats Nick Saban, but we don't know. But we got good games, and like you said, the Big Ten is going to start up real soon, and Pac-12.
Yeah, everybody redeem myself. Last week, I loved Georgia Tech against Syracuse. Horrible pick. This week, I'm going to lay the 29 points. I think Clemson's going to win by at least 30. So that's my lock, my ACC lock of the week, Herbie. Great job. And next week, we'll see you on Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Phenomenal. Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the weekend that is coming up, Herb.
Yes, and next week, we'll be doing the preview of Miami taking on Clemson.
Huge.
We'll go totally in depth with that thing. We'll get everybody from Carl Gables to the guy in Abingdon who is sitting there, my brother who loves his Canes. We'll get him to hopefully chime in. So if he's feeling well, but we'll do that next week. But until then, thanks, folks. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next Tuesday night at 8 o'clock here on Uski and Herbie.